and it's gonna be chalky. We're gonna start off pretty straightforward one. No one is surprised that the Dallas Cowboys are an offense that we're all looking to invest in for fantasy in 2021. This is a team that's probably going to be fighting for a playoff spot down the stretch in a super soft conference. Their schedule, before I start gushing, Alex, give me some takes on the Cowboys.
I mean, the Cowboys, Stef, it's funny. You say it's chalk, and we all know this Cowboys offense is dynamic in terms of the playmakers they have. We know the kind of pace they were on to start last season, but we seem so soon to forget just how good some of these players are. I mean, if it's a small sample size, but I want to look at week 1 through 4 of 2020 when Dak was healthy and they were firing on all cylinders on offense. Here's the pace of all of their playmakers. Dak Prescott was on pace for 6,700 yards. He was the QB1 in fantasy in weeks 1 through 4. And I know it's a small sample size. I know their pace would have slowed down, but this is a quarter of the season. Like, it's not nothing. So Dak, phenomenal. Zeke was the RB4 in PPR through the first 4 games, 22 PPR points a game. Amari Cooper was the wide receiver 1 on pace for over 200 targets, 1,600 yards. Ceedee Lamb as a rookie was the wide receiver 16 through the first 4 games of his rookie season, over 1,200 yard pace. And even Michael Gallup, their third wide receiver, was the wide receiver 33 on pace for over 1,100 yards. So if we just remember what some of these guys can do when they're at their best, I think a lot of these Cowboys are discounted right now. I know some of the ADPs are going to feel high, are going to seem high, but when we think about the upside for some of the guys on this Cowboys team, I think there are actually some values to be had. Ceedee Lamb at wide receiver 14 right now per Underdog Fantasy's ADP seems about right, maybe a little bit high. But those other guys I mentioned, Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, I think they're all values by at least a round, or the top guys at least by a few picks in these 2021 startup drafts.
Yeah, and I think people are sleeping on Zeke. You know, we always have such a recency bias to what happened last year. You said it, right? He was the RB4 through the first 4 weeks of the season, doing exactly what he's supposed to do as a guy who's been, a perennially top 5 running back in the NFL and for fantasy. And before this season, Zeke either passed or was on pace for 300 carries.
It's crazy.
Every single year of his career. And he didn't hit that last year. He had some games where he played, but it was a limited snap share. So I think if we actually looked at the snaps that he did play, I mean, we know what Zeke is. We know the type of role that he's going to play. This is a guy that's averaged double-digit touchdowns every year of his career. I expect those to come back in spades. We know he's going to get the 300 carries, even though they may not be as efficient as they once were as Zeke's gotten older. This guy's still only 25 years old. I think he has plenty of juice left. He's going to get a ton of passing work as well. I think people are sleeping on Ezekiel Elliott and just leaving him for dead because he did look a little washed last season. But I think that had more to do with the Cowboys really, knowing that they weren't going to be 100%. A competitive team and Zeke trying to keep some of the tread off that tires. Now, that's going down narrative street here, but I like Ezekiel Elliott a lot. I think at RB7, he's still undervalued. This guy could be the RB1 at the end of 2021. And I'm with you on Dak. And I'm with you on Cooper. I mean, Cooper could literally be the wide receiver 1 this year. I think that's completely in the range of outcomes. He's the clear alpha X wide receiver on a team that should have over 600 pass attempts. The defense isn't getting any better. And then you even have some deeper names like Tony Pollard, who are, yep. I'm getting him in redraft. I'm buying him in Dynasty.
Best ball is fantastic. I've been just hoarding the Tony Pollard shares in these best ball formats because I think he could be a value.
And I went back and listened to us talking about Dallas before the start of last season, and we were talking about, Blake Jarwin is going to step into this Jason Witten role. And I was all over the Blake Jarwin hype train, really just because of the situation. Wasn't really big on the talent, didn't think he was going to be utilized at an exceptionally high rate, but just the situation that he's in on a loaded, explosive offense that's going to be in losing game scripts with a quarterback that's going to pass for, probably over 5,000 yards this year if things remain constant. So even just that alone, whether it's Dalton Schultz, whether it's Blake Jarwin, I like both of these guys, especially at their ADPs. Jarwin is getting absolutely slept on right now in drafts, especially dynasty drafts, but even in redraft as well. These guys are both these late round names that you can take shots on. I'm buying up Dallas everywhere. Now, Alex, I want to focus on one particular player. a guy who started, in that 4-game sample size. He was exceptional, but it was questionable what he's going to do on a week-to-week basis, and that's Michael Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem like he's going to be the odd man out with, Cooper taking the intermediate routes, the downfield routes, even catching some underneath stuff, Lamb being used underneath. Michael Gallup seems to be this field stretcher, almost like a DJ Moore last year, where his a good game is going to be 4 receptions for 100 yards. You're hoping he gets the touchdown. Right now, his underdog ADP has him at the wide receiver 40. That sounds like an exceptional value for a guy who, when you put it together a whole season, is probably going to be a high-end wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I'm big on Michael Gallup, and he is the biggest value on this team. It is hard to say someone's a value when they're still going as a running back 1 like Zeke is, or Amari Cooper is going as the wide receiver 12 right now, which is low to me, but it's still hard to say it's a value because he's still being drafted as a wide receiver 1. But Michael Gallup, with where he's going right now in round 8, I mean, you could be getting a steal with this pick, a guy who's been over 1,000 yards in his career, a guy who had over 100 targets last season with Ceedee Lamb, with Amari Cooper, with, Dalton Schultz and some of the other options in that offense. I think Gallup's an absolute steal, and I think Michael Gallup's a good candidate to go over 1,000 yards again this season with a healthy Dak Prescott, with a lot of these balls down the field, that high average depth of target that he has, as opposed to a guy like Ceedee Lamb who's going to eat up a lot more underneath. I think Gallup's a value, and he's going to be a little bit boom or bust. He's going to be a little bit hit or miss, but for a guy you can grab to be, your wide receiver 4, and you can flex him and have the upside to go for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns on some of his boom weeks, I think he's going to be a tremendous value. There are going to be ups and downs, but at the end of the season, I think we could look at Michael Gallup and say, dang, this guy ended up as a top 30 wide receiver because of some of those boom weeks.